Maybe network club.
You can listen to lectures, but you don't really know.
Do we need more of that? Probably not.
I'm gonna disable Wi-Fi or leave it on. I'll do it as a backup, but are you getting it? Yeah. Here, I'm just gonna restart the. Okay.
They call the cops. There's no French in there. I'm not French. This is Jesus. Remember the end of your world presentation. Do that later when you're going to.
$12:45. It was working? I don't know. It was, so yeah, I don't know what changed. Right. Okay. All right. Cool. Excellent. Good deal. Yeah. Yeah, I can see. Okay. I'm gonna have my speech. Sure.
Before we practice, let's go to
Hey, cool.
No, I don't. That's all I need to know. I know it's please.
Tú te sientas allá, acércate a la silla y cuando yo baje tú subes. Yo te doy el pase a ti. Y aquí, aquí están las tuyas.
Ok. Cuidado, te vayas a llevar las mías.
No. Yo te las dejo aquí.
Yo estoy en la distancia. Bueno, de todas maneras, tienes buena voz.
Hello. Hello. Okay. Am I gonna have to? Okay. What? Si lo pones acá de este lado, no es mejor. ¿Ah? Like this, here, from here. Oh, okay. It's like, oh no, we can't. So, well. Yeah, it's, okay, yeah, that's the best position. Okay.
¿Sí está cerca? Sí se escucha.
Hello? Oh, yeah.
Tienes que hacer así. Pero la otra es que te lo pongan al lado para allá.
No, está bien, ahí está bien. No. Okay. Okay. No, I prefer to be here. I prefer to be here. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you for being here. We're going to be providing this presentation, a very brief presentation on the Venezuelan situation. Probably you're wondering why we changed the title of our presentation, because in the schedules there was something like Venezuela from economic miracle to economic disaster. And actually, I decided to change the name of the presentation because I think it better captures the nature of our problem, what happened exactly. Before continuing, I really want to thank the Mises Institute for this opportunity because it's been one of the greatest weeks I've had in my life, and I'm talking seriously. And yeah, we are going to try to explain the untold part of our recent history. Okay, we're going to have like a journey through our institutions of the last century. What cause? We're going to try to delve into the causes of our current economic, political, social, and especially moral disaster we're living now in Venezuela. First of all, before continuing, I would like to point out two things. First, that freedom must be understood in its proper dimension. Through our speech, you're gonna notice that in Venezuela, when we enjoyed very high levels of economic freedom, we were under dictatorial regimes. And when we finally embraced democracy, we started killing the economic freedom. But it was not all at once, you know. It was a gradual, progressive. Well, I swear to myself not to use that word anymore in my life. But yeah, it was a gradual thing, you know. We started killing our economic freedom, at the expense of the welfare of millions of people. The second thing I would like to point out is that socialism never, ever works. No matter what Krugman, Stiglitz, or guys in Spain like Pablo Iglesias say, it doesn't matter what they say. It never works. Because it was very common, especially during the first years of Chavez's mandate, to hear these guys, you know, on TV or writing or something saying, Venezuela has the socialism that works. And that's not true, okay? Having this in mind, I have to tell you as a fairy tale that this land, there was a time when this land was really prosperous and wealthy, okay? And you can see the years there. To the point of being considered an economic miracle in the specialized literature, okay? Many books, you can see that in many books. Okay, as I was saying, during those years, out of the 5 presidents we had during those decades, 4 were dictators, you know, and generals of the army. So our civil and political rights were really diminished, constrained. We didn't have freedom of the press, for example. We didn't have universal suffrage. We were under dictatorships, but citizens still could enjoy high levels of economic freedom. And I will show you why. Now I'm gonna play a video, short video, so that you can see the level of development Venezuela was reaching during the 50s, okay? During the 50s. I have to say that I do not agree with some things shown in the video, but it's the video, I couldn't edit it. You can download it from YouTube, so there is no problem with that. But we do not agree with some things shown in the video, but it captures more or less the level of development Venezuela was reaching during those days. This I do not agree with. Okay, let me introduce you to the institutions, especially the economic institutions we had then. From 1914 to 1922, Venezuela started entering the international oil race, you know, because in 1914 we had the explosion of our first oil well. But there was an outstanding feature here of this period. The government did not attempt to make the mistake of managing the business. The government did not own the business. It was privately owned, just private international companies that reside in Venezuela, had concessions, I think it's the word, concessions to explore and exploit the oil. So the government did not make the mistake of managing the business. That's one of the key points you gotta keep in mind. Now, how about taxes during those days, during those decades? Well, in 1957, precisely, the marginal income tax on individuals was 12%. 12%. And there was, of course, there was a state, we had a state, but the consolidated public sector absorbed 20% of the GDP, which was mainly used to build the basic infrastructure of the country, as you saw in the video. And that's it, okay? It was like, let's say limited government, I don't know, a limited state, something like that. How about international trade? We were relatively free to trade internationally because we had tariffs that were on average high, yes, I have to say that, but no other major barriers to trade. I mean, no quotas, no anti-dumping laws, no safeguard laws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We were relatively free to trade internationally. How about controls? There were just a few state-owned companies, okay? And virtually no price, no rent, no interest rate, and no exchange rate control. So we were really free economically. One of the fundamental pillars of our development, of our prosperity during those decades was the judicial system. Justice was impartially administered, especially when it was about protecting private property and businesses, okay? Of course, there was corruption, but it was concentrated at the highest levels of the government. It was not, all the way down through the bureaucratic structure, through the country, you know. It was just concentrated at the highest levels of the government, at least during those years. In 1939, nothing is perfect, you know. Nothing is perfect in this life, and we had to make the mistake. We couldn't afford to be the last ones in this race of destruction, and we had to create our own central bank. We did it. But I have to say that during those years and up to the 60s, the central bank acted as a currency board, defending an irrevocable fixed exchange rate with the US dollar. That's how it worked. And it was mainly private as well. Now, despite the high levels of economic freedom we had during those years, some government decisions started to chip away that freedom. Decisions like the first nationalization of the telephone company, or, for example, the creation of some state-owned companies and some state-owned banks with the purpose of developing the country, you know? And that happened in 1950. Yeah, we started showing the seeds of our destruction, our institutional destructions, because you can see the deterioration in the level of economic freedom we started having from the 50s to this is 1958. In 1958, we finally embraced democracy. The last dictatorial regime of our modern history was overthrown in 1958. But the political elites that got into power democratically, they decided to, obviously they provided us with more political and civil rights because we started having freedom of the press, universal suffrage, etc., all those rights. but they decided to keep reducing the economic freedom. The guy you see in the picture, well, the other guy you know who he is, right? Fidel Castro. But the guy you see there was the first president elected democratically in Venezuela in 1958. He's Rómulo Betancourt. And as you can see, well, I think he was a communist transformed into a social democrat. In fact, when he was in exile, he founded the Communist Party in Costa Rica and also helped found the Communist Party in Colombia as well. So he, started destroying the economic institutions we had because he started implementing price controls, for example, rent controls, things that we hadn't had before. And on top of that, he created a new constitution. He and his friends created a new constitution. And with in that constitution was hostile to private property, okay? But don't you dare say a word against him in Venezuela because he is the father of our democracy. Don't you dare say a word against him, even now. From that moment on, power went back and forth between social democrats and social Christians. Okay, so there was no free market system implemented in Venezuela. Of course, we had more economic freedom than we're having now, but there was no a total free market system implemented, okay? But these guys were very smart because they always blame free markets for the failures they were committing, Now, they applied the same rules, okay? All of the presidents that came after Rómulo Betancourt applied the same recipe. As you can see, all of them were social democrats or social Christians. The guy that you see with the star there, a red star, Carlos Andrés Pérez, he was the president of Venezuela twice. And I have to say, during his second mandate, he tried to revert some of the policies he implemented during his first mandate and tried to liberalize prices, some controls, and privatize things, etc. But some of the things that he should have implemented, he didn't do it, and he also didn't take into account the importance of the sequence of the reforms he was trying to implement. What was the result? Well, we there was a crisis and the total demonization of free markets. So that was the result of that. If I have to summarize what all these guys did, I think there is no better picture that describes what they did. All of the policies they implemented consisted of state ownership of the resources, of the commanding heights of the economy. I mean, oil industry, gas industry, electricity, telecom, et cetera, iron, et cetera. They also applied mercantilist policies, such as quotas, tariffs, anti-dumping laws, et cetera, to favor some businesses at the expense of the welfare of people. And they started touching the currency. They started destroying the purchasing power of our currency, devaluing the currency frequently. So that created a huge inflation in the country, and the poverty rate started to increase. And on top of that, they decided to destroy our judicial system because perverse incentives were created for delinquency and corruption. Now corruption was not just at the highest levels of the government, but was spread all over the structure and all over the country. And you can imagine that was a fertile ground. That was the perfect scenario for an outsider. I call him an outsider because he didn't belong to the parties, to the traditional parties that were, I don't know how to say it, ping-ponging the power between during 40 years. But he was an outsider, and he was populist. With his populist speech, he was very charismatic, especially to the poorest people of Venezuela, of the country. I'm talking about Hugo Chavez. And he emerged. He was elected president. What did he offer? Well, he offered to change a light socialism by a more radical socialism. That's what he offered. In 1998, he was elected president, and he was very popular at the moment. Okay, you see again the picture with this guy. I think he's an ideological son of Fidel Castro. He's communist as well. And he, having the power of reverting the policies that his predecessors implemented, because he was very, very popular at the moment, he didn't do it, okay? And he just exacerbated past mistakes. That's what he did. And also created a new constitution, which is even more hostile to private property than the one we had before. But don't you dare say anything against him. Well, not now, but in the first years of his mandate, don't you dare say anything against him, because he's considered by many the Jesus Christ of Latin America. When he died, or when his death was officially announced, okay, on March 5th, 2013, Nicolás Maduro was practically put in power. So what he did, you can see from his records here, he did nothing but continuing with the policies of Chavez, but now he's trying to approve a new constitution with which private property practically disappears and with which he can remain in power forever, okay? So this is yeah, socialism at its finest. So I'm gonna let you with Rafael. He's gonna explain the results of all this and things that we are living as we speak. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you the saddest part of his history. Let me start with an international view of Venezuela. How is Venezuela in the international, the rest of the world? Economic freedom of the world is an index of the Fraser Institute. By the way, the Professor Terrell used it in some of his conferences. Well, in 1997, you can see here, Venezuela were ranking as the 10th most free country of the world. In fact, best ranking than USA in the 2016 report of this index. But since 2010, we are in the last spot of this ranking, okay? This index, it's important to say this index has a lag of 2 years. So the 2016 report reflects the results of the 2014. For this reason, we expect that Venezuela will be in the last spot up to 2019. The World Bank has an index that measures the ease of doing business. Well, Venezuela is almost the last of this ranking. Okay. While in New Zealand, that is the first country of this index, you last almost just 1 day to start a business. In Venezuela, you can last up to 200 days to start a business. The Index of Transparency International, well, ranks Venezuela as the most corrupt country of this continent. Believe it or not, we're most corrupt than Cuba. Cuba is better ranked than Venezuela. It's very sad, this situation. As the last relevant indicator of our poor performance in comparison with the world, we use the Professor Steve Hanke's misery index. This index is the sum of the unemployment, inflation, in fact in Venezuela, hyperinflation, okay? The bank lending rates minus the percentage change in real GDP per capita. Well, Steve Hanke said that Venezuela holds the inglorious spot of most miserable country of the world for 2016, as it did in 2015, and it is expected to 2017. And we, Venezuelans, expect 2018 too. So, what are the results of the socialism in Venezuela? Well, highest level of inflation and scarcity of our history. People eating garbage, schools that do not teach, hospitals that do not heal, long and humiliating lines to buy flour, bread, or basic medicines, the militarization of practically every aspect of the life, etc. In a nutshell, people living off the state and not at the limit to the state, living for the people and by the people. Look, this, a crowd fighting for just 2 chickens. And this is all days in Venezuela. But all this is made in socialism. That is the seal of the government. What about the minimum wage policy? Well, since May 1999, Hugo Chavez, to July 2017, Hugo Chavez's son, Maduro, the minimum wage was increased 38 times. That represents more than 108,000%. But what happened? In May 1999, the basic basket represented the 27 minimum wage. And today, you have to pay 5.70 minimum wage to obtain the basic basket. And the high-skilled professional wage, take, for example, full professor. A full professor. In the 1980s, the full professor needs to pay almost 15 minutes of his salary to buy 1 kilogram of beef. Now, today, in July 2017, a full professor needs to pay the equivalent of more or less 18 hours for buy 1 kilogram of beef. The socialism. Other example. 1980s, full professor need to pay almost 1 year for a new sedan. Today, more or less 25 years of his salary. Okay? Other example. In the 1980s, a full professor with his monthly salary could buy 17 basic baskets. Okay? Today, he can buy just 1/4 of a basic basket. And what about our money? Well, in March 2007, this was the highest bill in our economy, 100 bolívares. And you could buy $28, 288 eggs, or 56 kilograms of rice. Today, you can buy this. One of these. So, from March 2007 to July 2017, you need 5 of these bills to buy just 1 egg. Okay? So, socialism is the cause of the Venezuelan misery. Venezuelans are starving, eating garbage, losing weight. Children are nourished. But freely minded of socialism, like Stiglitz, Bernie Sanders, Pablo Iglesias, and other people, think that Venezuelan socialism is the best. Anyone in Venezuela would be happy to eat out of America's trash cans. It would be considered gourmet when you have nothing. It's really, you have nothing. A lot of Venezuelans have nothing. Socialism sucks. Bernie Sanders, no matter what you say. So Venezuela has a shortage of food, medicines, etc. On July 2017, more than the 16% of the products of the basic basket are really scarce. But this is socialism at its finest. This is the saddest reality of our health system. Free health for all Venezuela, said the government. People dying because they do not find an antibiotic. Or newborns placed in boxes because hospitals lack the cradles or incubators. See this picture? Newborns in a hospital in Venezuela. I guess any puppy in the United States or in any other country has a better bed than these children. Our children do not deserve this misery. Look at this picture. An illegal worker. Sorry for take that example. An illegal worker needs less than an hour for buy this bottle of acetaminophen. Okay? But a full professor in Venezuela needs more than 40 hours to buy that bottle. And if he finds it, okay? Because it's very, very difficult to find acetaminophen in Venezuela. Socialism at its finest. And meanwhile, our opposition leaders keep negotiating freedom with a tyrannical regime at the expense of the suffering of millions. Citizens are urged to regain hope, but in our view, these politicians have defrauded people. By the way, all of them are socialists. All of them. In different levels of socialism, but they are socialist. Well, he is Chavista. He is the governor of my state, but he's Chavista. He is Leopoldo. He's the most media coverage, but he is an utopian social democrat. Okay, and I think he is in the Congress from Perez Jimenez. He's the oldest of the opposition, but he's a dealer. He has very much business. Capriles loves Lula's socialism. He said that, okay? So, what's the response of our society? Well, the young people are leading the fight for freedom in Venezuela, in spite of what the current political leaders instruct. They abhor to be called the opposition. They are the resistance. In Spanish, la resistencia. Actually, they are the real heroes of freedom in our country. But the world needs to know that they have been killed by a tyrannical government. We say that a new leadership must emerge since our current opposition also hates free markets. A new historical breaking point is urgently needed. 2000 when? We don't know. We hope today. We hope this night, tomorrow, this week. Perhaps 2018 will be very, very late for Venezuelans. Well, to conclude, I want to remark that we strongly believe that our misunderstanding caused this disaster. We, Venezuelans, never understood freedom in its proper dimension, because when we enjoyed high levels of economic freedom, we allowed the destruction of political and civil rights. And when we finally established democracy, we allowed the destruction of economic freedom. As Hayek said once, freedom is just one thing, and our new leaders need to know that. In the name of Econitec, Movimiento Libertad Venezuela, the resistance, and millions of people in our country, we thank the Mises Institute for this opportunity to briefly tell the untold history of Venezuela. Thank you very much.